everyone. It's so nice to have you all back at day 3 of GFEL's second edition. Hope the last 2 days were wonderful for everyone and very eventful. Now we're beginning day 3 with a very interesting session that will delve into how far we've come in closing the digital divide over the past 20 years. Let's get the ball rolling by getting the speaker back on stage. Please give a round of applause for Saeed Bilani, founder and CEO of 21st Century AI, who will speak on the topic, The Digital Divide 20 Years Later.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Well, it's great to be with you all here at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. It's a real pleasure. Hopefully we're starting our morning off on the right note. My name is Saeed Bilani, as she said, the founder and CEO of 21st Century AI. I'm also the president of the Institute for Middle East Peace and Progress. I studied at Georgetown University, concentrating in international affairs. Recently completed the Master of Education in International Education Policy at Harvard University, and I'm currently pursuing a Master of National and International Security at Georgetown School of Foreign Service. I also teach leadership and ethics at Harvard Kennedy School. And it's such a pleasure to be with you here today to speak on a topic very near and dear to my heart, and I'm sure to many of you as educators. Without further ado, let's get ready. The digital divide, 20 years later. Educators and policymakers have warned of the effects of the digital divide since the 1990s. Initially, this deficit referred to the lack of access with computers and the internet. But by 2016, we've encountered another more precarious issue, an emerging digital divide. As some students learned to use technology for active construction of knowledge and understanding, others have remained passive consumers of digital content. With the continued rise of artificial intelligence, another chasm has emerged that has resulted in varying experiences with and exposure to this new innovation. So the digital divide 20 years later. Over the past few decades, artificial intelligence has created a state of disequilibrium, not only in society, but also in education. Currently, AI can be found driving search engines, powering adaptive learning platforms, and self-driving, enabling text-to-speech, dictation, and translation, and even monitoring school security. However, these technologies have flooded education faster than research and policy can keep up with. Today, AI is in more places than ever before. In many ways, artificial intelligence has become the new electricity. So what will the next 20 years be like for AI? Lots of governments and countries are taking it very seriously and plan to grow education, research, and development in AI. China's plan in particular alone calls for a $100 billion investment in funding over the next 10 years alone. But what works may also hurt. And that's the importance of ethics in implementing AI technologies. Listen, AI is great. It makes our lives easier and sort of gives us superpowers. Who knows what we can't do without machine learning? But we must also heed the challenges of its ethical application and integration. From the introduction of voice assistants like Siri and Alexa and Cortana, which violate federal student privacy laws, to the adoption of learning platforms that risk reproducing stereotypes and biases. The unintended consequences need to be carefully examined alongside the potential benefits of personalization, differentiation, and augmentation. In the rush to adopt artificial intelligence, it will be critical to not only assess the promise of artificial intelligence, but to also proactively measure its potential side effects. Because even though AI could bring tremendous benefit to education, it could also exacerbate existing inequities and in the process further widen the digital divide. Working with the world's most vulnerable population also puts an enormous responsibility on AI practitioners to be ethical, transparent, and intentional in how we implement artificial intelligence technologies. We need to pay attention to critical challenges on the ground in executing on the promise of AI. For example, with respect to gender equity, if we don't pay attention to the data itself, we will further widen the gap in many communities where they already exist. In many systems, human engineers select the data features around which algorithms to build their models. So while a machine is not inherently biased, its code may include assumptions that reflect the implicit, unconscious biases of its human creators. Therefore, if we only take AI on its face value without intentional scrutiny by artificial intelligence practitioners, we will only extend the growing digital divide, and in the process, hurt the most vulnerable in these societies: children, youth, impressionable young children. A 2016 UNESCO report estimated that there are 758 million illiterate adults in the world, roughly 2/3 of whom are female. Artificial intelligence practitioners need to be cognizant of including everyone in AI innovation and need to press harder to include under-resourced languages, underrepresented communities and people for a more diverse dissemination of rights. Despite these challenges, AI offers an abundance of opportunities for the developing world to bridge the digital divide and create a more inclusive society. More importantly, as educators, leaders, and practitioners, we must hold ourselves accountable to the highest ethical standards with respect to how AI is applied to ensure we are not widening the already existing digital divide. Imagining an AI human utopia is exciting, but we need to be realistic. In many industries, automation doesn't only enhance human activities, it can replace humans entirely. For example, truck drivers are the most common jobs in the US. If self-driving vehicles revolutionize transportation by 2040, will these people lose their jobs? What would that do to our economy? These people's livelihoods? You know, they say work gives a man dignity. Now you want to take his job away and give it to a robot, to a machine? This creates even greater concerns than economics and supply chains. It creates psychological challenges as well. This is already the trend in many industries. For example, US manufacturing output will continue to grow and rise, but manufacturing jobs have been decreasing a lot, and they will continue to do so. Plus, computers use energy, and that means we're not getting any benefits out of AI for free. Massive machines running these algorithms can have a substantial carbon footprint as well. You also have to be careful about entrusting AI systems, because they often end up with all kinds of biases that you may not intend or want. So we must consider the benefits of artificial intelligence deployments with the cost of worker displacement and possible structural unemployment. Another thing is that AI is not perfect. For example, Target recently figured out a woman was pregnant based on her shopping history and sent her maternity coupons, which her parents found out without her informing them. So that raises the question, do we want our data used like this, divulging our personal information? Another example is government. Should it be allowed to track people with facial recognition installed on cameras at intersections? If anybody's recently been to China or even the UK, you've probably seen the abundance of CCTV cameras in the streets, on intersections, especially at the airports, sort of serving a dual purpose of crime prevention, but also, what else could they be used for? Perhaps misconstruing people's personal data? When we provide companies with location data from our phones, we could help them build better traffic models so we can get places faster. Cities can improve their bus routes, but it also means that someone is always watching. AI can also check on your friends, your families. They can see where you were stopped, who you were with, who you ate with. Integrating human ability into AI solutions. Simply, the future is unknown. But hindsight, of course, is 2020. AI is a really new, cool tool, Innovations in AI have great potential to make positive changes in our society. But there are also plenty of risks, especially if the technology advances faster than the average understanding of it. But the most important thing we can do is to be educated and involved in AI as it expands and as the field changes. The biggest and largely unexplored opportunity for AI to bridge the human divide and the digital divide is to integrate human ability into its solutions. AI applications offer enormous opportunities for the developing world to bridge the digital divide and create a more inclusive society. Therefore, augmenting human capacity with the power of artificial intelligence can reduce healthcare costs. It can customize and tailor education. It can propel scientific innovation and discovery. And it can support national defense, as well as school defense, in helping protect schools, students, families, and communities. And with that, we come to the school shooting crisis. 20 years later, how many of you remember the Columbine school shooting in 1999? The Parkland school shooting in 2018? Every year, parents pray while politicians promise a solution to one of the perennial problems of the 21st century, the decades-old school shooting crisis. And while there continues to be strong public support for action, Washington keeps hitting roadblocks, with partisan politics keeping the school shooting crisis at an impasse. Over the past decade, there were at least 180 school shootings at K-12 schools across the country. They've happened in big cities and in rural towns, at homecoming games and during math class, as students are leaving school in the afternoon and while walking to school in pursuit of an education. And they are happening more and more often. This is an important educational problem because to be educated and to engage in education, first and foremost, the most elementary and basic expectation is to have safety and security in the academy. Devoid of security and burdened by the insecurity of being the next target of the next school shooting limits the educational process and thereby inhibits the scholastic and educational journey that is being a student. Separate from being part and parcel to threatening the safety of learning, the school shooter crisis targets and directly impacts the most vulnerable members of the U.S. population: young, impressionable, innocent, and harmless children and youth, all of which are by nature defenseless, unarmed, and vulnerable to the next attack. And while young students are the prime targets of the school shooter crisis, parents, relatives, survivors, community members are just some of the members of our local and national communities that are directly affected. School shooters who are successful in their acts of terror, in effect, motivate and inspire other bad actors to follow in their fantastical pursuits of being the next school shooter. This problem in education is truly a generational problem because its solution delves into several concentric circles, which clash in practice in resolving it because it may encumber some special interests. For example, implementing reforms that limit assault rifles from penetrating the market are staunchly opposed by powerful lobbyist organizations. In addition, politicians, legislators, and policymakers that can truly get to the heart of the issue and resolve it are disillusioned by powerful special interests, which they are inextricably linked to for their own political futures. Other politicians who may identify with stricter gun measures may also be cautious to enacting worthwhile reforms because resolving this issue could eliminate a principal political cause to run and advocate in favor of, again, for political purposes. Therefore, many politicians across both political divides are hesitant to justly resolving this problem, and therefore, political posturing is all that really materializes in the conceptual sense. To overcome this perennial 21st century problem requires 21st century solutions. Introducing 21st century AI, an artificial intelligence-powered prototype platform that is integrated into schools' CCTV camera feeds, which can detect the sight and appearance of guns, weapons, and objects that may pose a particular danger to students, teachers, and staff's personal lives. 21st century AI sees an opportunity to pragmatically address this crisis by advancing a visionary, forward-thinking, practical, accessible, and applied solution utilizing pre-existing CCTV cameras and an artificial intelligence-powered algorithmic apparatus to detect, locate, and alert to potential school shooter. To overcome the product's assumptions and to ensure it is accessible and not dependent on an app or sound detective sensors, this platform's competitive edge will integrate artificial intelligence. As a machine learning apparatus, this product can become increasingly acquainted with movement and threats over time. Thereby, its accuracy rate and the detection of guns and weapons can be gradually trained, developed, and harnessed to ensure the safety of students in schools from getting in the line of fire. 21st century AI's key activities are based on its value proposition of offering schools and students a defense system and a source of deterrence against weapon-induced attacks. The value prop that 21st century AI will provide is an innovation that is intended as a solution to the school shooter crisis. The value that it will deliver is safer schools and safer communities for students, for communities, for our country. Thereby, a large group of citizens will benefit from this utilization of artificial intelligence-powered security apparatuses. A key value proposition inherent to 21st century AI is its newness, its innovative design, its apolitical posture, its visionary outlook, and its capability to be molded to a school's needs, its risk reduction characteristics, and its status as a timely product that will finally work to address the school shooter crisis in America without fear of obstruction by lobbyist groups or any detractors that work to derail school safety reform. Surveys show that 90% of perpetrators of mass shootings are current or former students of their school. This was the case for the Parkland Senior High School shooting. If that's the case, then running students through lockdown drills doesn't make much sense, even from a security standpoint. You're training potential perpetrators of the exact response the school has. Kids today are running through 5 to 10 lockdown drills a year, starting in preschool through 12th grade. Not only is that not getting to the heart of the solution, but it's also imbuing this sense of fear in students that we're on the precipice of a next school shooting, and that we should always be on the vigilant and on the lookout for the next school shooter. Psychologically, that's not healthy for these young, impressionable students. So now's the time to reinvent security through integration and detection via existing CCTV video feeds. The integration of 21st century AI allows for using an existing CCTV security camera infrastructure to harness CCTV video analytics technology in augmenting a camera's ability to detect weapons. To achieve this end, a comprehensive data set is designed featuring thousands of images and videos constructed to discern and identify guns and weapons found on CCTV security cameras. Also used to continuously train our AI weapons detection model for improvements, hence its machine learning functionality. The way this appears practically is due to machine learning and how it learns and acquaints over time with movements, is that the initial accuracy rate of 21st century AI could hypothetically be 85%, but with a year of integration and continuous practice, it could rise to the level of 99% accuracy rate in just a year alone. Locate and alert via supplemental app. With 21st century AI, students, teachers, and staff will immediately know of a potential danger, the geoposition location of that danger, while notifying local authorities so they can immediately respond to neutralize the threat. And here we are, harnessing 21st century artificial intelligence to detect, locate, alert of weapons and threats in real time. 21st century AI, a visionary, albeit practical, forward-looking, apolitically pragmatic security apparatus will harness 21st century cutting-edge artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies to provide a remedy to the decades-old school shooting crisis, thereby ensuring the safety and security of students, teachers, and staff, while promoting deterrence and strengthening the resilience of schools, institutions, families, and communities the nation over. 21st century AI is a weapons detection platform. What will identify threats via AI-powered prototype, and it will be integrated into school CCTV camera feeds to detect the sight and appearance of guns, weapons, and any object that may pose a danger to students, teachers, staff, bystanders' lives. Artificial intelligence in this case will be harnessed to radically increase the efficiency of the surveillance systems by driving human innovation, human intention, human augmentation of artificial intelligence that can compromise the security by sending real-time alerts. Seconds matter in these circumstances. By detecting unusual incidents and generating alerts, 21st century AI relies on object recognition, intelligent image processing, and analytics as key technologies to transform camera-based security systems today. And as you have it here, this is how it will work. You will have a school, a potential school shooter or school shooters, the CCTV camera integrated with 21st century AI's artificial intelligence and machine learning data sets will detect the sight of weapons, whether they may be assault rifles, knives, or any weapon of any kind. It will detect and transmit via real-time streaming protocol. The location will be geopositioned. And then the students, teachers, and staff will be alerted via a supplementary 21st century AI app. And it will appear very much like an Amber Alert. Red alert, code red. Steer clear from the 3rd floor west wing entrance of Stager Hall. Shield and take cover while further communication is made. Detect, locate, alert. Safety, security, deterrence, resilience. It's coming soon. You all may have realized that we haven't had a very big, large-scale school shooting recently. And that's because clearly we've been online. We've transitioned to a virtual modality. Now that we're going back to normal, the post-COVID era, this challenge is once again on the rise. And let me be very clear, this is not a final resolution to the school shooting crisis. It is not such, and it will never be such. We can only get to the heart of the problem through policy changes, through advocacy, through real structural change. But this is an opportunity to bridge the digital divide through an emergent, ever-expanding, and highly probable technology that will continue to expand, that will continue to rise. This is our opportunity to leverage this 21st century innovation to protecting the most innocent of life. And with that, I thank you for your time. I appreciate your company, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Thank you. Great question. Very frank, but a great question. So clearly, and like I said, the first half of this presentation was talking about the ethics of artificial intelligence. Yes, it's a great innovation. Yes, it has great potential. But at the same time, we shouldn't just jump into it as the next fad. Just like the internet. The internet has great effects to it. Effects that come from social media, for an example, that lead to suicides and deaths and killing and all sorts. So what's very important about artificial intelligence, whether with respect to 21st century AI or any other field that it may penetrate, is that it is ethical and that it has auditors, as you said, referees, who will ensure that the artificial intelligence is working as it should, that it's not co-opting people's personal information, people's data, for bad means. And so it is of critical importance to have regulations. And I'm no fan of regulations, but in certain circumstances, you do need to have a referee, you need to have an auditor, you need to have someone that can ensure that this technology, because technology is it's not perfect. Robots are not perfect, and they will never be perfect. And that's the beauty of human augmentation. And so like I said, artificial intelligence on its own, on a surface level, is great, but it's only as great as its human counterpart. So human augmentation is how we will ensure artificial intelligence works as it should. Any other questions? Please.
How can you be sure there won't be a false positive, fail-safe? What do you do when it's maybe a plastic gun or something to protect the errors that could occur when AI is trying to identify somebody with the web?
Wonderful question, and a question of great concern. So that is a very likely reality. Like I said, technology, AI is not perfect, and it is far from being perfect or perfected. False positives will happen. In addition to false positives, biases may also become an issue. And like I said, these are not intentional biases, but at the end of the day, humans are programming these data sets, these algorithms. And humans, by nature, have our own biases. And so therefore, yes, please.
Does the alert only go to the teachers and staff or to the police?
So the innovation of 21st century AI is that it will detect, locate, and alert students, teachers, staff, as well as law enforcement. Now, there are other products on the market that go only to the local authorities, but that's not good enough, because by the time it gets to the local authorities, that only gets the response from local authorities to get to the school shooter. But if we can trigger an alert to students who may be on that same floor, in that same hallway, in that same bathroom or room as the purported school shooter, we can save lives. Like I said, in these situations, not minutes, not seconds, in some cases milliseconds, matter a lot. And the way we are working to overcome false positives is that these alerts will be first sent to school officials on the ground. And once they can authorize that there is a potential purported school shooter and that the weapon is an actual weapon and not an object of another sort, then they will trigger that to students and teachers and staff and bystanders in the school and local communities. And so what comes with that is also buy-in. We're not pushing this product on anyone. It is an app that will come with 21st century AI that can be downloaded as a supplementary app. You'll put your school code, and then it will sort of work as an Amber Alert. You'll never kind of go into it, but should you have an emergency situation, it will trigger and it will apprise you that there's a potential danger and to shield and take cover. That's of most importance. While the officials, the law enforcement officials, can make their way to the school, assess, and neutralize the target. Any other questions? Well, in that case, thank you dearly. I appreciate it.